Do you know what antisocial personality disorder is? While sociopathy and psychopathy are the outdated titles for ASPD, it is unfortunately typically associated with serial killers and mass murderers or emotionless individuals with a thirst for blood and torture. While in some cases people with ASPD are guilty of violent crimes and have violent tendencies, it is a huge misrepresentation of the disorder. People with ASPD consistently have no regard for right or wrong and typically ignore the rights and feelings of other human beings. There are a vast number of symptoms that include persistent lying, disrespect of others, the use of charm to manipulate others for personal gain or pleasure, arrogance, superiority, they're opinionated, have criminal behavior, use intimidation to violate others, display hostility, aggression, violence, lack of empathy and remorse, dangerous behavior with no regards for safety, and poor and serious violation of rules. Unfortunately, diagnosis of ASPD is underrepresented, as most people who are diagnosed in their adult years kept track of symptoms from their youth. So those individuals who lacked specific attention when they were younger on these specific symptoms might not be diagnosed as an adult because they did not follow through the typical diagnostic procedure. Only 39% of people with ASPD are diagnosed and seek treatment. ASPD also exists on a spectrum, so the degree and number of symptoms and behaviors that are displayed through an individual can vary based on which end of the spectrum they are on or at what point on the spectrum they are on. ASPD is typically caused by trauma and very specific environmental factors like abusive parenting, etc., but it can also be caused by differences in brain chemistry and just genetics in general. A good example of how ASPD is displayed in behaviors is a child who was feeding birds some food. The birds kept moving, and so the child couldn't feed the birds, so he snapped all of their necks to make them stop moving to feed them. Obviously, the child did not have necessarily malicious intent to kill the bird. They just wanted to do something that would solve the problem for them and please them. It just made sense. They don't have any spectrum for right or wrong or any regards for a moral compass. I've noticed that in TV shows, movies, and the media, ASPD is heavily misrepresented. And like I said previously, they're drawn out to be these extremely violent, cunning, super intelligent characters, when that's not necessarily what defines a personality disorder. And in the past few years, there have been a lot of TVs and movie shows about serial killers, and they're depicted under the umbrella of having ASPD, but a lot of them are glorified because of such misrepresentation of the personality disorder. Let's dive into a couple movies where main characters are said to have sociopathy or psychopathy in the words of the movies, not the actual medical term we would use to describe it. I'd like to analyze it to see what symptoms they got right, what actions, behaviors that they got right, but where it falls flat in some regards. It's especially important to address how movies in Hollywood in the media depicts people with certain mental disorders and personality disorders, because when there's misinformation, it creates a lot of really harmful stereotypes and an inability for people to seek help and treatment for their own disorders. First, we are going to take a look at We Need to Talk About Kevin.
Before we begin our analysis, I would like to set forth a trigger warning as we discuss school massacres, murder, and other kind of violent and disturbing things, so check out or step into the hallway if you would not like to hear about that kind of stuff. To briefly summarize the plot, the story is told from the mother's point of view, who was a travel writer and gave up her freedom and lifestyle to have a child with her husband. Yet she was really ambivalent to having a child, and pregnancy didn't really agree with her. When she finally gave birth to her baby boy named Kevin, she can't seem to bond with him, and he constantly acts out in very dangerous and concerning behavior. As he grows from a fussy, demanding toddler into a quote-unquote sociopathic teen, she's forced to deal with the aftermath of her son's horrific actions. His mother is the target of all of his behavior.
Mom is fat.
The cause of his symptoms of ASPD are rooted in his childhood, as from his perspective, he believes that his mother didn't give him enough love, and from the mother's perspective, it seems as if he cannot accept love. So there's this kind of disconnect between them that fosters and grows throughout the film. One of the main symptoms that he displays is being deceitful and being manipulative. His father only views him as this nice, loving boy, while whenever the attention is turned away from him from his father, he acts malicious and aggressive towards his mother. When someone acts in a way that Kevin doesn't like, or he doesn't get what he wants, he will destroy things, he will vandalize rooms, and he will also emotionally abuse his mother to get what he wants and for his own personal pleasure. He's very amused by making his mother scared and forcing her to silence and kind of in this position where she doesn't know how to act, displaying symptoms of disrespecting others, feeling superior, and using intimidation to violate other people's rights through hostility and aggression. Another defining trait of his is he clearly lacks any sort of empathy towards anyone. In this scene, his mother told him that they were going to go out to dinner to this very nice restaurant, and instead of waiting to eat there, he just ate literally a whole turkey, which is kind of disturbing, but also reflects how he does not care about what other people's feelings whatsoever. In the movie, he goes on these monologues kind of emphasizing his intelligence and how smart he is and kind of talking other people down. And I think that also reflects how they believe that they're superior than other people and they're kind of arrogant in their own knowledge. Something that stands out to me that's not directly reflective of ASPD is his ability to plan out events. A lot of thought went into the massacre that he commit, and a lot of people with ASPD act on impulse rather than planning something out, so that's kind of atypical in this disorder. His aggression, manipulation, and lack of empathy is also very apparent in the way he treats his sister. Not only does he wrap her up with tinsel and Christmas kidnap and leave her there just on her own, he also kills her guinea pig in the dishwasher dispenser, the food dispenser in that, the little spinny thing that goes yeah, that's where the guinea pig went. And in this scene, he asks her to get him a soda, and she does, and then he says, "No, you arsler, get the other soda. I wasn't talking about that one." So he purposely degrades his sister into making her think that she's stupid to get what he wants and kind of have that power over her. His distaste towards his sister could also reflect how he believes he didn't get that much love as a child while she does. His violence towards his sister and animals is a common symptom of ASPD, especially in the youth. Which also relates to the disorder is his lack of friendships or any real relationships, as he cannot hold a healthy one with the way that his personality disorder limits him. In the end, Kevin ends up killing 7 people in his school along with some other staff with his bow and arrow, and then kills his sister and father also. I think this movie has a fairly good representation of someone with ASPD on the more severe side, as all of his symptoms are displayed throughout his early childhood, and we watch as they grow and foster into something that's more aggressive, more violent as he gets older and becomes more of an issue in his life. His final act of this huge massacre doesn't exactly align with the disorder because it's not for his personal pleasure or gain, and he's quite aware of the morality of killing these people. So I think that this is another part of the movie that falls a little short on accuracy, as it glorifies the violence of the disorder.
Moving on to our next movie, we will analyze Hannibal Lecter in Silence of the Lambs.
Hannibal's role in this story is assisting an FBI agent in trying to figure out the location of the serial killer and his identity. Hannibal is locked up in the most high security, isolated place because he is a cannibal, kind of similar to his name, and killed a lot of people and ate them. The FBI agent Clarice is instructed to kind of play with his game and do whatever he wants, and Hannibal prefers people who have really good manners. So she abides by him and has very good manners towards him and never tries to overstep her bounds and her superiority, kind of instilling his notion that he is superior to her and that he is better than her. Where Hannibal's character kind of goes off the track of ASPD is his very heightened sense of smell and also his extreme IQ and intelligence. People with ASPD can be very smart and oftentimes are, but that does not mean that being intelligent is a side effect of this disorder, which this movie kind of makes it out to be. People with antisocial personality disorder believe that they're better than other people, believe that they're smarter, superior, and hold this arrogance to them, where his abilities are confirmed though in his actions. He is that smart. He can tell you who a serial killer is without even hearing the news. It's kind of like this super ability that isn't actually present with people with ASPD. He also reflects no remorse or guilt and a lack of empathy when describing victims that he murdered and also other victims of murder. His motivation towards killing victims is either because they were rude and they had bad manners, so he's not seeing it as a right from wrong, he's seeing it as, you treated me poorly, so I am going to do something to avenge myself. And if it's not directly from bad manners, it's someone that did him wrong in his life and he will seek revenge. As a cannibal, he eats humans, obviously, but he is very cultured and prepares human meat in very elegant meals, which again goes back to having a lack of a moral compass, because this is rather just hunting, killing, and gathering food and then creating it for yourself. So it's not seen as a good or bad thing that you're killing these people, rather this is a means of getting food. Here he is showing off his paintings, and I think something to point out is in a lot of movies and a lot of media, people with mental disabilities, whether it be ASPD or other personality disorders or other disabilities, are painted in this glorified picture that they have some superpower in another set of skills like extreme intelligence, extreme memory, something like that. And this heavily pushed portrayal kind of limits the amount of people in everyday life who suffer from these disorders to come out and try to seek help or even recognize that they have a disorder, because they believe that you must have some kind of super ability on the side too to be affected by it. Hannibal definitely displays deceit and manipulation to a next level, because him talking with Clarice and helping her out opens him up to being transferred to a new facility because they take on a new idea of him, and then he eventually uses this to plot an escape plan, which is something that would not have happened without Clarice. So he manipulated her and all the other guards into moving him to another place to get his chance of freedom. Similar to Kevin, to some extent, he has a really good ability to predict the future and plan out some, not a massacre, but his escape. However, he does act impulsively, which is another symptom of ASPD, in the way that he reacts as he escapes. He also hides his violence and aggression underneath this charming display, which is something similar to what people with ASPD do, as they use this front to manipulate and deceive and get what they want and please. Ah! I added in that little jump scare just to kind of ease the tension a little bit. Sorry. In the final scene of the movie, Hannibal uses his manipulation one last time on Clarice by calling her and saying, "Hey, I helped you solve your crime, and you get that, and you're gonna let me be on my own and not pursue finding me," and uses some persuasive methods to kind of manipulate her to not pursue him and let him be. This is just a little bit of what he says in that final scene.
I do wish we could chat longer, but I'm having an old friend for dinner.
We all know that he means that very literally, as in eating that guy for dinner. But in this scene, it also shows his superiority and kind of entitlement he has, as he is calling her knowing that he will not get caught and knowing that he is implying that he's going to kill someone and will get away with it. Similar to Kevin, I believe he's on the severe end of the spectrum of someone with ASPD, but I also think there are some other underlying mental disorders or brain functions, something that is causing him to be a cannibal, and something else that accounts for his very good sense of smell and high intelligence and all of these other things that don't directly relate to the personality disorder. We're using a mic for the ending because the audio sounded terrible in the other clips. However, I would like to summarize this. I would like the most important takeaway to be that someone with antisocial personality disorder is not inherently a serial killer or a mass murderer or someone who wants to rule the world and kill other people. That is not what someone with antisocial personality disorder will automatically become. Rather, they are a human being with a personality disorder that makes them feel superior, arrogant, causes them to manipulate other people, causes them to commit crimes because they have no moral compass, they have no right from wrong, they lack empathy, which is a huge component of human interactions. Both of these movies depicted people on the far end of the spectrum for antisocial personality disorder and displayed them in a fairly accurate way based on the symptoms, however kind of glorified them and their abilities and definitely glorified the violent aspect of it. This video is not made to provide sufficient information to diagnose someone. Diagnosis specifically for antisocial personality disorder is a longer process and will take consultant from a psychiatrist to any other mental health professionals. I am just a teenager talking about ASPD, seen in a couple movies, so I have no qualifications to diagnose you, and self-diagnosis can be very harmful and dangerous towards yourself. I think a goal for the media and books and movies and TV shows in the future is to depict ASPD in a less severe way, people that are maybe on the middle of the spectrum or on the lower end of the spectrum, to really see all sides of the personality disorder and not just the most extreme, because that creates these harmful stereotypes that anyone with antisocial personality disorder will cause this kind of destruction. So let's hope that happens in the future, and thank you guys so much for tuning in.